be looking at how we can convert blueprint structs into C++ structs. In this project, we have got a rather crucial struct here under quests. In the F quest info, there is a blueprint struct that is used throughout the project to transfer the state of a particular quest. But we want to be able to use this struct in C++, and so it must exist in C++. It's not possible to use a blueprint type from C++, as we understand from the layering that has been mentioned previously in this course. So how are we going to go ahead and do this? First of all, I'm going to rename this particular struct to deprecated. Now, for some reason, I had an F prefix on this struct. There was no need for that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that to deprecated underscore quest info. So anywhere we see this in our blueprints, it's now renamed it throughout. The use is in our blueprints. Deprecated is going to give us a sign that we might want to be migrating this across in the fullness of time. Now, the next step is to create a struct in C++. Now, there isn't actually an option for this in our add new. So if we go to add new C++ class, there is no struct option in here. So the next best thing is going to do a show all class and create something that derives from UObject. So that's going to create a class automatically. Let's go ahead and click new. I'm going to put it in my quests folder, and I'm going to call it, funnily enough, quest info. So let's go ahead and create that. And as I said, that's going to create as a U class, but it's fairly trivial to convert a U class over to a U struct, and I will show you how. So let's hop over to Visual Studio and see what it has created. So it should be under source and under my quest folder. We've got this quest info and quest info CPP. Quest info CPP is empty, which is why it didn't open it. So it's just the header file here. And what we need to do is change over, first of all, to using a struct in C++. And we don't want to inherit from anything. We don't do inheritance with structs in blueprint structs, or at least blueprint accessible structs. We still want a generated body. That is fine. We still want this C++ API. That's also fine. But we want to change the macro from U class to U struct as well. And that's basically it. That's how we create U structs, which are structs that have been enhanced by the header tool to allow access via blueprint. Now, a few more things that we're going to want to do. First of all, to allow this type to be used for variables in Blueprint, we need to add blueprint type, and that just means that variables in Blueprint can have this type. The next thing we've got to do is migrate across the different variables. So we've got a name, quest ID, progress total. We're going to do this with a U property, and the U property is going to be edit anywhere, just like it was in a class, and that just means that if we have a property with this type, you can edit the contents of it. And it's also going to be blueprint read write, because we want to be able to break and build this struct from within Blueprint. So both those properties are quite important. Next up, we are going to look at the type. It's going to be an F string, a string basically, of name is going to be the name of it. So I'm trying to match it as closely as possible. So this is just really kind of drop-in replacement. Now I'm going to go ahead and make 4 other U properties here. And the next one is going to be an F name type, which is almost like a string, but not quite. And then it's going to be progress is the next one. Progress is an int 32 called progress. And then finally, we have got progress total, which is also an int 32. So let's just correct our indentation here. Int 32 called progress total. Now this has created a blueprint struct that should be accessible from within C++ and within Blueprint. So the next step, once this compiles, is to go ahead and make use of it. But before we get there, notice there is an error here that is saying that uQuestInfo is missing a valid Unreal prefix. So it is expecting it, because it's a struct, it's expecting it to start with F, and that is enforced by the header tool. So this is very good. It's caught us out that we want to have fQuestInfo, not uQuestInfo, when it is a struct. And you might find, as I just have, that when it successfully compiles, it might crash Unreal depending on what you had open. So I've just gone ahead and launched it up again. And what we are going to try and do is go and change the main source of Quest Info, which is the Quest Manager, because the Quest Manager stores a list of the Quest infos, and this is kind of the central location for all that state. So we have this list of Quest info, and basically we want this to be using the new type instead of the deprecated type. Now, while we're doing this, I'm going to actually move this variable over into C++ as well using a U property. So let's go over to Visual Studio, and we're going to open up the questmanager.h, and in a new protected section at the bottom here, I am going to add a new U property that is going to be, again, edit anywhere and blueprint read write. And it's going to be a T array because we want an array of the fQuest info types. And I'll call it the quest list, like so. And before we do that, I just want to make sure there's no naming conflicts by renaming the quest list array that we have in Blueprint to deprecated _ quest list. So again, we're going to spot that a mile off, and we're going to try and replace this entirely. We're going to remove it by the end of this module. So we'll go back, and we do need to have an include for our quest info. So hash include quest info.h, and that should remove that error here. And we'll just go ahead and compile, and that will give us access to this quest list in Blueprint. So once that compilation has finished, let's go back to the quest manager. Just make sure I have that tab docked. And you won't see it show up in the variables down here on the left because this is only the Blueprint variables. But if we select the quest manager root in the components tab and go over to details, or you could do it by going to, I believe it is class defaults, then you can see that here there are a few variables. We have the deprecated quest list, and we have our new quest list, which is the one coming in from C++. So unfortunately, there is no automatic process for this. You just have to go ahead and copy over this data manually. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to speed up through it. So generally speaking, this is such a tedious process to migrate a struct that I really recommend that if you can at all avoid it, don't make structs in Blueprint and just make them directly in C++, so you don't ever have to do this migration. There's unfortunately no real automatic way to do this. So now the final step, unfortunately also quite tedious, is to find all the references to our deprecated quest list. So let's find references, and we are going to go through these one at a time and consider what to do with them. Now, this particular instance, we are returning a quest list from get quest lists. And if we have a look at the signature of this function by clicking on one of the function nodes, then you can see that it is public and is in fact being accessed from the outside. And this probably means that we shouldn't go mucking around with the types unless we want to go and migrate everything in our whole project, which is going to be a right hassle. So what we're going to do here is we are going to build up a new quest list out of our new quest list that is of the deprecated type, which is going to be a bit tedious, I know, but let's go ahead and try that. So first of all, create a local variable, which is going to be the new quest list that we're going to create. And it is going to be of type deprecated quest list because we're trying to keep the API the same. And it is going to be an array. So that's the variable that we're actually going to return from our return node is going to be the new quest list, like so. But we also need to build it up as we go along from the non-deprecated quest list. So we're going to do this with a for each loop, and we're going to for each over our quest list from C++. So get quest list, like so. We're going to for each over that and add to our new quest list as we go. So get that, add to it, and we're going to add the element here, but we need to convert that element. And the easiest way to convert is just going to be to break the quest info node and make the quest info node, or make the deprecated quest info node. And we can just hook up the name, the quest ID, the progress, and progress total, and just do a straight up conversion like that. So we're going to hook up our loop body to this add, and we're going to hook up our completed to the return node, like so. And that was probably the most in-depth thing we're going to have to migrate. The next thing is we have got our complete quest. Now, complete quest in its signature actually doesn't do anything to do with having a quest ID, so we can just go ahead and migrate this whole thing. Now, we're going to get access to the quest list, the C++ quest list, and you'll notice that we can't just plug this into that get node because the get node is designed specifically for getting from an array of the deprecated quest list. So we need to recreate this, unfortunately, and we have to recreate quite a few nodes in our blueprint. So it's a get ref node that we've got here, because I can tell because of this little diamond shape, and then we can move across the index node. Now again, increment progress, this is a private function, so I'm going to go ahead and change its type to the non-deprecated quest info. And then I am going to hook up the new get node, which should work because the type is now correct. Otherwise, if I tried to hook it over before, the type wouldn't have worked. Again, this get will not go into this break node because the break node was designed for a different kind of struct. So we're going to have to repeat that. Just go ahead and break our quest info, and we are going to then set a member of this reference, which again, we had to recreate the node, so it's going to be a set member. And then to expose that we want to set the progress, we click on the node, drop down the default category, and select the progress pin to expose it. Then we can hook it up in the quest info, and we can hide any unconnected pins in the quest info just to make it look the same, and migrate across the execution pins from these two. And we can go ahead and delete them now that they have served their purpose, and that function is also migrated. Let's go to the next one on the list. Here we're getting the quest list and we're doing a for each loop through it. So you could go ahead and recreate the for each loop because you'll have to create it as a new type. But one way of cheating is just to use our get quests function, which we have already made convert that quest list for us so that we can just go ahead and use the old types. Going to go down and do the same thing in a few more of these functions. So we'll do a get quests here in our get quest. Then in active index, we are going to do the same thing. We're going to just do get quests. And finally, in our get next macro, we are going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to get quests. Now, hopefully, we've firewalled this change just to the quest manager. Let's see if we can compile. There are still some issues, so let's see where these issues are coming from. Okay, increment progress. We changed the type of the input parameter, but we did not change the function. So the function needs to break that quest, and we need to hook up these progress nodes, progress and progress total. I'm using control click to move these, and then I can delete that. And we need to create a new set members. So set members in quest info, move across the execution pin, move across the progress pin. First of all, we need to expose the progress pin and then move across the progress pin. And then we can delete the old set members and compile, see if we are successful. Yes. So now we have migrated across our deprecated quest list. And hopefully if we search for any references to it, are there still any references? Yes, there is a reference in here, but actually that's a dead reference. It's no longer being used. We're no longer using this get node. In fact, we need to hook up a new get node. In fact, it looks like I'd used the old get node, unfortunately, to set members. So we'll just have to replace that set members node one more time, moving across the execution pin, exposing progress, and moving across that and the output execution pin. And let's try that out. Compile this and just check for references again for that deprecated list. Find references. So that's no longer referenced, so we can delete it, which was the aim, to remove that deprecated quest list. And now that quest list is entirely residing as the source of truth in C++. So we haven't successfully migrated the whole of every usage of our old blueprint struct, but we have certainly migrated the most important parts, which is that quest list, over into C++. And where we haven't migrated stuff across yet, we have got conversions from the old struct type to the new struct type, or vice versa. Great stuff. So hopefully you now realize why it's really quite useful if you use C++ structs from the get-go.